Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and individuals with pronouns and flags in their bios have gotten pretty used to large corporations bending the knee to their whims when they throw a fit on the Bird app, but apparently that doesn't exactly last when the money runs out, kind of like your drunk uncle at the casino, and it is hilarious to read about it. Let's get into it. Here we have an article, Willow's cancellation slammed by claims of pushing an anti-representation trend. The cancellation of Willow has led to an online backlash against a continuing trend among scrap shows, and Disney is turning a deaf mouse ear to these individuals, aren't they? On the surface, the cancellation of Willow is a simple business decision that comes down to nothing more than the cost of production against the revenue the project gained, which by many accounts was not a great deal. Well, yeah, of course it wasn't a great deal. People weren't spending $12.99 to sign up to Disney Plus to watch Willow. The site lost, what, $2.5 billion? And I love how it says, on the surface, the cancellation of Willow. Yeah, of course on the surface. It's the same on the surface as it is under the sea. Because that's the reason it was canceled. Money talks, putting a flag over your profile picture for a month walks. While showrunner John Kasdan has discussed the second season of Willow, saying it has been mapped out and could still go ahead sometime in the future, that hasn't stopped a huge backlash on social media calling the move anti-representational. Well, I can't imagine how huge the backlash is because it wasn't exactly the biggest show on Disney Plus to begin with. How do you have a huge backlash when only 12 people watch the show? For some, the series' demise marks the latest in a long line of shows featuring prominent queer characters and romances to have been canceled in the last few months. And you know what? I'd be willing to bet there's some truth to this. I bet there have been a lot of television shows in the last several months that have lots of representation canceled. But there's a caveat to this, a little asterisk, a tiny cat butthole. All shows nowadays have so much representation to where if any of them get canceled, this can be lauded. I mean, name me a modern show that's not filled with some sort of diversity quota box-ticking representation. So yes, when shows get canceled, you could probably say this about any show. Willow was released to a now expected conflict of opinion between those who praise the show's inclusive cast of new characters and those who review-bombed the show for changing the focus of the series compared to the 1988 movie. I would like proof that it has been review-bombed. Maybe folks just, and this is a wild guess, didn't like the show because they loved this movie in the 80s and this wasn't what they got. They didn't get a continuation, they got a bastardization. So you're using the word review bombing here pretty liberally if you don't have any sort of stats to back it up. Complaints against the show were that it included too many representational characters for the sake of it rather than to aid the telling of the story, which I think is probably a pretty valid complaint from what I know about the production of this show. In fact, from what we all know about modern Hollywood. Yeah, representation, as I've said many, many times, is great when it's serviceable to the story. You want to know what show wouldn't get any complaints about representation, as I said in the previous video? Arcane. Arcane was full of queer representation, and no one batted an eye, because the show was good. It is that simple. But when you're just doing it, to check boxes, to make yourself look good on social media, so you can put all those flags in your bios and get all those quotes and retweets so that you can get that big dopamine rush and feel like you're changing the world with your Willow sequel, a television sequel to an 80s George Lucas film that barely anyone remembers aside from, oh yeah, Val Kilmer was in other stuff besides Top Gun, then of course people are going to have these complaints. This battle continued throughout the series run and became more of a fierce fight than any featured in the show. Well, again, I don't think it was much of a fight because no one was showing up to watch the show to have these sort of opinions, aside from some wannabe famous blue check marks. Now there's been a wave of outrage over the cancellation. Okay, there may be a wave of outrage, but it would be like a water park wave pool wave. Like, clearly any 6-year-old can stay above the water, but it's technically a wave. Including the introduction of the hashtag cancel your gays. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. In fact, I'm sure it does, considering right here we already see a hashtag cancel your gays. But I feel like when you see this out of context, it's not sending the message you probably think it is. So maybe work on your hashtag game before you start trying to create movements. If I was to create a movement where I really wanted pictures of cats, I wouldn't say hashtag show me your pussy. That's probably going to get a very different response than the one I'm wanting. Well, depending on how you look at it. Has been used to call out the cancellation of Willow and a number of other recent shows, including Netflix's Warrior Nun. In relation to Willow, one Twitter user said, "We deserve representation. Stop canceling us." No one deserves representation. I'm just throwing this out here. Doesn't matter if you're white, black, gay, straight. No one deserves representation. You know, representation is something that will just come naturally in a good story. Just because you're a guy who might prefer to suck dick, or you're a lady who thinks it's more fun to play with female boobies than man boobies because the obesity crisis has gotten quite out of hand, doesn't mean you deserve anything, because it's not special. The moment you act like you should be getting stuff because it's special, that goes against the idea of normalizing having those sorts of stories in our culture. I, again, am A-okay with diversity when it's done as if it's normal. Because if you're so shallow that the sexual proclivities of the fictional fantasy character that you started to fall in love with is more important than their inner soul and their morals and the guiding lessons that can be learned from them and all the important stuff that isn't who they want to sleep with, well, maybe the problem is you. Another user added, "Sad news for the queer community. Willow was canceled after 1 season." Why is this sad news for the queer community? Why can't this be sad news for the fans of the show Willow? You know, it's not every person in the queer community probably liked Willow. You're speaking for the entire community about a show that just wasn't good, that didn't make money, that no one watched. If I polled 100 gay people right now, how many do you think would say they were Willow fans? I don't know the answer to that because no one I know watched this awful show except for one person, and he agreed it was an awful show, but it was so bad it was good awful. And let me tell you, I still couldn't understand the mental gymnastics he had to jump through to get to so bad it's good instead of just stopping at it's so bad. Enough is enough. Our stories deserve to be told. No. Good stories deserve to be told. If there happens to be some queerness in there, sure, awesome. The story has to be good to deserve to be told. Because no one wants to hear a boring story, child. No one wants to hear a bad story. These network streaming services need to stop canceling lesbian, sapphic shows. Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, Gentleman Jack, First Kill, A League of Their Own, Motherland, Fort Salem, Winona Earp, Willow, Paper Girls. I haven't watched Vampire Academy yet. And I'm sure you're not, missing anything, but alright. We live in dark times for storytelling. Streaming services hold creators captive and bend to the review bombers and those who spread hate. We need to have a talk. Uni, Jen, gay flag, BLM, heart. You and I gotta have a conversation. I want you to define what spreading hate to me is. Because if I can't, take a butter knife, dip it into a carton, and just slather it all over some bread, I ain't spreading it. The only thing I'm spreading is the jelly on my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I guess I'm also spreading peanut butter on my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But the point is, you're not spreading hate if you're just talking about your opinion of a TV show, even if it's negative. Folks are allowed to have negative opinions of media that they don't like. For example, I don't like The Shawshank Redemption. I know, controversial opinion, but every time I go out and lay my case for why I don't like The Shawshank Redemption, am I spreading hate? Am I a racist for not liking the movie because Morgan Freeman's in it and he's black? No, I just don't like The Shawshank Redemption, and I have a list of reasons why. It's not spreading hate to give a negative opinion. The effect of canceling yet another sapphic-led show. Trending with 2,730 tweets. That was, save Willow, cancel your gays, A League of Their Own. Representation matters. Okay, so these are all trending together. I have a feeling that this is quite photoshopped. These were not all trending at the same time. Good morning to the one and only Kit Tanthalos, and a big you again to Disney Plus. Well, let me be the first to let you know this, are we? Kit Tanthalos cannot tell you good morning back. That's a fictional character. You would be better off, writing to Elon Musk on Twitter and saying good morning to him. He has a better chance of saying good morning back to you than Kit Tanthalos. And as for the FU Disney Plus, not even is that a fictional character, that's an app. That app is not going to get all offended and start crying if you said F you to it on Twitter. I know separating fiction and reality is so difficult for you because you live on Twitter and lose yourself in these fantasy worlds because the outside world is just too much for you to handle. Adulting is so hard, but it's an app, dearie. It can't respond back to you. Another sad news from the queer community. Willow was canceled after 1 season. I cannot take the hashtag cancel your gays trend anymore. When will streaming platforms understand that representation matters and we aren't a small audience? Let us stay loud. If you are not a small audience, then why is not enough revenue being generated to keep these projects alive? Do you think the studio execs just spin around in their swivel chairs, kick back, smoke cigars, and be like, I didn't want to upset the queers today, and they just spin this wheel of fortune about what gay show they're trying to cancel. That's probably not what's going on in the Disney boardroom meeting, sweetheart. Representation is the hardest thing to handle in Hollywood. When it comes to representing any group of individuals in mainstream TV shows and movies, there seems to be no easy way for studios to handle it and bring a unanimous harmony across all opinions. And that's completely fair. I'll give credit there. You're never going to please everyone. Some people believe every project must have a stipulated number of prominent characters who are queer, black, or Asian, or trans, etc. And those types of individuals we refer to in the Leon Idol School of Hard Knocks as insipid slags, shallow, and so full of hot air that they could be their own balloon-blowing assembly line. In contrast, others want to see shows go down the same route, such as a series as Yellowstone. And that route, if I was to take a guess, would be the route to go. Yellowstone, from what I've heard, brought in a bunch of viewers, has made tons of money, and has even gotten multiple spin-offs due to its success. So, oh no, people want shows to be similar to Yellowstone, a really popular show that makes money. I can't figure out why. Those with strong opinions one way or the other will never allow the slightest bit of give to the other side. Well, no, I do not think we should allow give to the side that wants to actually tick boxes for representation as opposed to naturally integrating representation into the story in an organic way that feels good for the viewer regardless of what their own orientation, skin color, or whatever is. I think that that's kind of natural, just to want good storytelling and not make forced artistic boxes to tick. At that point, it's just paint by numbers. And does anyone really want to watch television shows that are paint by numbers? I thought that's the whole reason we started moving to streaming, like Netflix originals and stuff, was because regular TV had gotten so awful. And that is where the studios find it harder and harder to get things right. Many new shows and movies in recent years have told stories involving queer relationships that have been pitched perfectly to the right audience and have been the recipient of widespread acclaim. Unfortunately, doing a similar kind of story at the center of Willow, which had previously set out its world as an odd-world fantasy, was not going to be popular with many fans of the movie. Yep, you said it right there. You gotta know your audience. Anyone who goes into any sort of show business, whether you're doing stand-up, whether you're making movies, cartoons, video games, whatever, you gotta know your audience. And the folks behind Willow either didn't know their audience or didn't care about their audience enough because they wanted to push their own messages and agendas instead, rather than doing something wholly original that very well could have been successful, also maybe not. It depends on if the individuals show up and if it's able to sell the tickets or sell the subscriptions and the show turn a profit to warrant more seasons, more episodes, the whole nine. But you're right, this was doomed from the start because this wasn't who the target audience was. This, along with a number of other modern elements that were haphazardly thrown in the mix, effectively killed off the interest of many who could have saved Willow from its ultimate fate. In the end, every series is built on the principle that it has to be popular and generate a strong enough following to make future seasons viable. If audiences don't tune in, regardless of the subject, and focus on how much it brings to a group that is still a minority, studios will not pursue something that costs more than it earns. Bingo! Now, I don't know how many of you guys watched Supernatural when it hit Netflix, but Leon Idol, your boy, I'm about to go all hipster on you here and say those dreaded words, I liked it before it was cool. That's right, I've been watching Supernatural since Season 1, specifically Season 1, Episode 11. I remember that's the very first episode of Supernatural I ever tuned into, and I watched it religiously. And you know what happened after Season 1? It was in danger of getting canceled. You know what happened after Season 2? In danger of getting canceled. You know what happened after Season 3 with the writer's strike? In danger. It was not safe from cancellation till after Season 5. I used to sit in fear that what was at the time my favorite show was going to get canceled. Now, looking back on it, I wished I had, because good lord did that show go down the drain after Season 5, but that's a story for another time. The point is, when you have individuals who are watching a show and it's making money and generating revenue, that show will continue. If that's not happening, there's one of many reasons. A, no one cares about the show, it's not getting watched. B, some people care, but not enough, so it's not getting watched. Or D, there's plenty of viewers, but the cost of the show is so exorbitant that even if it has a large fan base, it's getting canceled because it still didn't make up enough revenue. One of those three things did in fact happen to Willow. Do I know which one? No, not at all, but I'd be willing to guess it's the not enough people watching one, because no one watched this show, and everyone that did loathed it. And we can't throw all that under the blanket of review bombing, because if review bombing was the cause, the show would still actually be getting a second season. Something can get review bombed to hell, but they've got the viewership numbers and they've got the financial data. So if plenty of people were watching it and it was making money, doesn't matter how bad the reviews are, it would have kept getting made because it was making money, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So review bombing has nothing to do with this show's cancellation. That's why Velma's getting a second season, because people may have hated it. It may have gotten some of the worst reviews in the history of television, but so many people's morbid curiosity, myself included for the first 2 episodes, tuned in to see how legendarily bad it actually was, and because of that, revenue was generated and a season 2 is coming. Will it live to see a season 3? No, absolutely not. People are going to be giving up the ghost on this one, but the fact of the matter is, it's getting a season 2 despite its awful reviews. That just goes to show review bombing didn't hurt Willow. It just sucked and didn't make money. It wasn't for enough people. If you like the show, good for you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But also, if you like the show, you're probably not far enough into this video to hear me say I'm glad you enjoyed it, because you've turned it off because I said something mean about your great representation show. But that's all I've got for this one. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, or you can let me know on Twitter, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do like, comment, subscribe. I'm sitting at over 600 subscribers, and that is incredibly amazing. I'd love to get that number even higher. I can't thank you guys enough. This has been so incredible. I am a nerdy news channel. I do nerdy news every day, whether it be Disney, comics, Magic the Gathering, Star Wars, Dungeons & Dragons, you name it. It's all here in the nerdosphere. And this has been Words of Paradise.